Hi, I'm Lauri Juniper, and you're listening to Tag YOURE as a part of BRIMBANK Live on Live FM, the Drag Edition. So today I'm going to be interviewing Malibu Stacey, an amazing drag artist, and they are my second interview of this series, and they were voted in by Teresa Problem. So when I interviewed Teresa Problem, she said, Malibu inspires me because of how much love and support they provide the people around them and how hard they work to achieve their goals. Their drag also inspires me because they are a non-binary drag queen that doesn't need to perform for their drag to be recognized. So welcome, Malibu.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. This is fun.
Yeah. So how does it feel to have that kind of impact on the drag artists around you?
It's honestly, it gets a bit overwhelming sometimes. I'm just so lucky to be in the position that I am, and I'm lucky to have such an amazing drag child as Teresa. And I'm just honestly, when you asked me who was inspiring to me, I was like, great, Teresa. And I found out that she's nominated me. I'm like, oh, what a little angel. She's honestly so impressive. And I met her, she was probably 15 when we started talking. And now she'd be 18 this year, 18 in November, and just the growth in her drag and in her as a person, it's incredible. So seeing people like that grow over time and knowing that I've had even the smallest impact on that is incredible. And I'm lucky enough to actually have been nominated and have won the Melbourne Drag Awards Support Person of the Year the last 2 years running, which is actually as long as the awards have been running. So that's a really special thing for me as well, to know that I'm recognised in my community for the support that I've given. So I feel very blessed and lucky.
Yeah, that's really amazing. It's pretty cool to have that kind of community and that kind of support.
Yeah.
Especially in Melbourne. I feel like it's pretty great in Melbourne compared to some of the other states.
Yeah, exactly.
So why did you start drag?
I just thought it looked really fun. Like, I was out at the Greyhound every Friday night looking at Art Simone and Boylesque, and I was this tiny little 18-year-old lesbian sitting there at the front of the stage with all these half-naked men dancing around, and then it was just me staring at Art Simone like, I love you. You're beautiful. And I was honestly just such like a weird little fan, just like shyly walking up to her, you look really pretty, Art Simone. And then her and I ended up just becoming friends because I was there all the time, and I'd offered to buy her drinks and just have a chat with her. And I said to her one night, I wish I could do what you do. And she just looked at me and she's like, well, why not? It's makeup and a wig. That's all it is. And I was like, oh, amazing. That thought hadn't occurred to me because I'd always seen men dressing up in feminine clothes and things. And I was like, that's what drag is. And just not by Art saying that, I was like, oh, it's literally just like an adult version of dress ups. Like, there's nothing stopping me doing it. I just need to buy some better makeup and a wig. So I started, and it was just kind of a creative outlet for me because I was studying science at the time and everything was so rigid and very full on, to be honest. And that was kind of my escape of getting to sit down for an hour and not worry about uni and stuff, play with some makeup, and then go out with my friends for some drinks or some dancing and see some shows. And then it kind of just kept evolving from there. And it wasn't just me going out to nightclubs in drag. It was me going out and performing, which I didn't really love that much, to be honest. And then that eventually evolved into my work at Piano Bar Geelong, which is my hometown. So it was very exciting to get a ongoing, well-paying gig there. And now I've been there about 3 years now. And kind of kept stepping up in roles. So now I'm the assistant bar manager of the Geelong venue and event manager for Piano Bar Group. And that's all come off me doing drag and the opportunities that's given me. So I'm really lucky to be doing what I do.
That's really amazing. It's great that you have such passion for it. So what is drag to you then? That's a bit of a hard question, but how would you describe drag?
Well, like I said, it's kind of just like an adult version of dressing up. It can be whatever you want. And for me, my drag started as a way for me to find a platform to access as many people as possible and talk about issues that I was seeing in the queer community and in the broader community. The first number I ever did was Lady Gaga's Till It Happens to You, and that was inspired by my lived experience and also what I was seeing around consent in the queer community, and the way that I was seeing a lot of people not ask before grabbing a drag queen's tits or ass, and not asking before, grabbing the bulge of a male dancer in the club. And I'm like, but these people are here doing their work. That's not an appropriate thing to do. But a lot of people were still getting drunk and doing it anyway. So I did that number and had sat in a white dress, covered myself in bloody handprints of where I was seeing those people be touched, and cut my clothes off to reveal. You're using that kind of shock value and then revealing with statistics written all over my body about rape and sexual assault of gay men, lesbian women, bi people and trans people in the community. So being able to do drag gave me that platform to step on a stage and to do that performance where I was highlighting something very important to me. And so Malibu Stacey as a character kind of came out of my personal feminist views, and kind of that idea of, okay, it's this 1950s blonde, big hair, big tits, overdone makeup stereotype, and why is that what we perceive femininity to be? And if I just kept pushing it and, cinching my waist further and further and padding bigger and bigger, at what point do you realize that this is ridiculous? So that's kind of where my drag started. But it's really hard to define drag as a whole because it's so personal to everyone. And people like Moxie Delight is a masculine person performing a masculine character, and I'm a very feminine person, but I'm non-binary and I'm being a drag queen. And people always get confused by that because I'm non-binary, but define my character as drag queen because I find them very feminine. And so I think drag is a wholly personal thing that can't really have an umbrella term aside from dress-ups, really.
Yeah, that's really amazing. A great way of describing everything. It's really cool hearing people mention all of the diversity in the drag community because, like you said, a lot of people only know it as seeing men dress up with wigs and makeup, and that's the only concept of drag that they have.
Yeah.
So what's been the highlight so far?
Ooh. Lots of things. Definitely, it would have been last year in May, I travelled with Art Simone as her assistant to LA Drag Con, which was massive. I'd never been to America before, and I reckon it was probably like 6 weeks prior. She calls me out of nowhere and she's like, so the assistant that was meant to come with me is just taking a new job and can't get leave. Are you cool to come to America with me? And I was just like, yes. We leave in 6 weeks, right? And she's like, yeah, you have a passport, right? I was like, yes, but also need to scramble to book everything and how long are we going? And I had a basic idea of when, but I didn't know when I was flying in, flying out, what you needed me to do. And honestly, that was the most incredible trip of my life. And we went and did DragCon together. We went to Disneyland together, Universal, and Art Simone is just top tier for me. She is my absolute idol and I'm very lucky to call her my friend. But that was just one of the coolest experiences. Went and saw Lady Gaga in Vegas do her show, and just the whole DragCon experience and getting to see someone that I love and adore so much. And I've adored them pretty much since I turned 18 and I'm now 25. And just seeing her get the recognition that I know she deserves, and me calling her while she's off doing a photo shoot with some big magazine. I'm calling her and I'm like, there's a line of 15 people here, babe. You need to come back. We need to be signing autographs. And I'm like, it's just such a surreal, cool experience to see someone that I love and adore so much and is like a big brother to me, be in this setting where we've just got hundreds of people wanting to meet her. And I just thought that was incredible and definitely one of the coolest things that I've got to do with my drag so far.
It's pretty amazing.
It wasn't even my drag. It was just that relationship's built out of my drag and knowing Art and working with her for so long. And then here we are in LA of all places.
It's pretty amazing to be from Australia and then get to go and travel and go globally for drag. So where do you hope to take your drag? What do you hope is in the future for you and your own performance?
I think it's definitely pushing towards more of my event management side of my role and using Malibu Stacey to help boost that and to promote different queer events. So I work for Piano Bar across all venues, so Geelong, Colac, Ballarat, and soon to be Bendigo, which is very exciting. And I think the best thing for me is being able to take drag into those small country towns where the queer people there generally don't have the most comfortable time living in a small country town like that. They come out, things get difficult, and generally as soon as they hit 18, they apply to a university in Melbourne, get out of there and don't come back. And I think that's where we have this cycle going on where, because that's how the queer people are treated, they just go, okay, I'm just going to leave, and that doesn't help things. So by being able to put a venue like Piano Bar into these small country towns, we have queer people working behind the bar. We have queer shows on with drag events happening all the time. I'm trying to bring in different queer events, like different shows and stuff as my part as events manager into these venues to kind of bring more understanding and help promote that and promote acceptance in those smaller towns where there aren't established queer populations because of this cycle. So I'm really excited to see what happens with that and to be able to do more events to promote safe spaces for especially young queer people is what I'm really passionate about. So I work with fantastic groups like Geelong Rainbow Inc., which is Geelong's local pride festival, which are fantastic and doing amazing things. And, you know, I'm looking at different community grants that we can access to promote different events to different generations. And that's kind of where I'm taking the Malibu Stacey brand. Is I'm very much a queen of all trades, and that's how I like to brand myself. I'm an audio engineer. I have had some lighting lessons in the last couple of weeks thanks to Piano Bar. I can, you know, do drag. I produce events. I really want to push myself to be doing as many different roles as I can so that I can help create these events and be thinking about the whole picture and making sure that I can do the best job I can, essentially.
Yeah, wow. And how has COVID affected all of this? Because you've just described all the training that you've done and how you've got an upcoming venue and how you've been traveling to different places like Geelong and Bendigo and Melbourne, which are all quite far away. So how has the lockdown and COVID-19 been impacting your everyday life and your drag?
It's honestly just so weird. I got promoted probably September, October last year. I honestly don't remember. But I just locked down like the first 6 months of the calendar. Here's all of our Thursday shows. Everything's booked in. I've priced it all. Everything's on budget. It's going to be fantastic. And then COVID happens and I'm like, great, all that time we spent planning out and mapping out what events we're doing, that's now out the window. But I'm really lucky to work for Piano Bar, who we closed on Saturday. We closed on the Saturday night and we said, this isn't going to work. People aren't listening to the rules. We can't keep doing this. So we closed that next day on the Sunday. And from Sunday night, we were live streaming to our Facebook page and sharing all of our shows and entertainments to our fantastic, one of our owners, Andy Pobjoy. He was like, nah, we'll just live stream it. He went out that day, went to JB Hi-Fi, went to JCUP, bought a bunch of cables and some cameras, just GoPros, started setting them up, figured out how to live stream it and switch between all the cameras. So we live streamed Pitch Please. And then Monday morning, the announcement came out that our venues had to shut. So we were thankfully just like that one day ahead of it, but we just finished our 100th live stream on Monday, which is both terrifying, but it's also really cool because we kind of created this great community of regulars that would be jumping online to watch us from their homes where they could still feel connected with people and get great entertainment while staying safe. And we were doing shows into aged care facilities where they couldn't obviously do much at that time because of the risk to the elderly people in there. So we got to do that and we created this really beautiful thing. So the last 100 days has been me still working, honestly working probably more than usual because I was taking on a lot of the admin work for Piano Bar as well as helping to produce these events, which means fabulous Nick Maloney Productions donated a bunch of lighting to us. So Nick was kind enough to train me on the lighting systems and how I could use different things. So I've been able to acquire that skill, and honestly, I can't stand being bored ever. I need a project. I need something to work on. So the Piano Bar live streams was a great thing for me to be working on. And I think we did 1 or 2 shows up in Ballarat which also that sucks because we'd opened the Ballarat venue 3 weeks before COVID lockdowns happened. So we've been like pouring hundreds of man hours into doing this. We had all the artwork, all the team. We've just hired all of our kitchen and bar staff and found all that. And then we've sent them down and they've got 3 weekends of Friday, Saturday nights being open, and now they're closed. So that was a really difficult hit. But Piano Bar Geelong is offering dining experiences at the moment where we're having 20 people per level of seated food and shows. We've done that the last month. So I've just been able to go through and fill up Tuesday and Thursday nights with different cool shows. So I'm back to feeling I've got some work and I'm on JobKeeper, which I'm so grateful for, but still really weird and just not my job at all. It's very different, but it's been fun. It's been something to keep me busy.
Being able to provide that kind of accessibility, like you mentioned, the nursing homes, and so that people could just jump on their phones and watch it from home, I'm sure has definitely made an impact with a lot of people, especially being in lockdown and feeling that kind of loneliness and still being able to kind of do the regular things they would normally do, but just virtually.
Yeah, we did online bingos so people could get their family involved. We ran some Disney shows and some magic shows for kids, especially around school holidays. Like, it was honestly, and like 99.9% of that was driven by Andy Pobjoy, who's just incredible, and the entire brains behind that operation. And he'd just pop in and he's like, oh, I've got a new camera, so now we can do a bar camera. I've got a new camera, so we can put a GoPro over the piano so you can see what my hands are doing, and all of these fun little ideas. And I would just be like, great, let's roll, like, show me where to plug in cables, let's go with it. And it's really cool. It's a really cool thing to have been involved with. So it's fun. It's really good.
Awesome. How do you feel about the discrimination within the drag community? So we spoke briefly about different people's definitions of drag and all that kind of stuff. How do you feel about the discrimination towards AFAB and trans individuals?
I think it's a really difficult thing. And I'm so lucky to live in Melbourne where, while we have faced discrimination, being from my friends that are female drag queens that I've seen, and myself as a non-binary drag queen that is assigned female at birth, I think that Melbourne is probably the safest place for us to be. There are a lot of stages where women and non-binary people are absolutely welcome all the time, and I think that's incredible. And I've never had an issue with Piano Bar for me being non-binary, and they've been absolutely incredible with it. But sometimes explaining that to patrons who are usually had a couple of drinks gets a bit uncomfortable for me. And I think that's just one of the weird things about my job. But at the same time, especially me being in places like Geelong, Colac, Ballarat, by me being a visible non-binary person in the community, I can talk to people and educate through that. I know with actually getting gigs and performing, there's some venues where you know you're going to be absolutely fine, and there's some places where you're a bit like, I don't know what they're going to do. Like, I remember being one of the first assigned female people at birth to do a podium dancing gig at Hoofddorf. And I remember my friend was like, oh, we need a third. Do you want to come and do it? And I was like, I literally just looked at her. I was like, am I allowed to? Like, will they get mad at you for booking me? And this person was like, no, it's totally fine. Like, I spoke to this person. They're cool with it. And I was just like, I don't know if that's going to go down well. And it was just this weird anxiety of like, I don't know if this will end well. And the whole night I was just very anxious about, like, for me to be able to wear the same costumes as the cis male drag queens. I was like, I just don't know if this is going to be perceived differently on me, if this is going to be a bad thing now that I'm wearing this little clothing. But I think things have changed in Melbourne for the better, and I think that Melbourne is one of the best communities for me as a non-binary person to be in at the moment, and also probably and you can see it in the drag that we have. There's so many incredible inclusive nights popping up around Melbourne. There's a lot of AFAB queens, non-binary queens, and gender non-conforming performers that are out there in Melbourne at the moment. That's honestly just such a blessing to see. Honcho Disco is probably my favourite place to go out when I'm up in Melbourne, because it's just such a welcoming and inclusive environment for everyone, and they make sure that it is. Like, if they see any kind of negativity, it gets stopped. And I really appreciate the entire Honcho Disco crew and the 86 as a venue for all the fantastic events they put on.
It's really wonderful hearing again about all of the community and support in Melbourne specifically. But where do you think we could go in Australia as a whole in improving the opportunity and the representation for the drag community?
I think the first thing that we need to do is be fighting more for trans rights. That is always something that's very near and dear to my heart. And I think that we can't improve the drag community until we are improving the rights of the trans performers that we have. I think that's something that needs to be looked at, and we need to make sure that we're putting them on stages where they will feel comfortable. And that doesn't mean necessarily putting them on a stage with a drag queen where they're then going to get misgendered, or, you know, someone that's obviously identifies as a woman, lives their life as a woman, is then getting told, oh, no, you're a drag queen, you look so great, I'd never know you were it. And I just think that that's something that historically has happened and is uncomfortable, and we need to make sure that we are promoting safe spaces for trans people in all venues, because there are a lot of venues that exclude women, exclude trans people. A while ago now, it came out that Poof Doof had a specific set of rules around what photos would be posted on their Facebook page. And I remember the first time I ever got a photo from that venue, I was like, oh my God, like, I can't believe it. I'd been going to that venue just for like a drink after the other clubs closed. I'd go there for one or two drinks, and I'd always see the photographer, who was an absolute angel, and he'd always snap some photos and sometimes sneaky send them to me, because he was aware that when he gave them to his bosses, they wouldn't get posted because I was too feminine and because I didn't fit that very strict set of rules that was cis male drag queens. And it was guys with hot bodies and, you know, no women, no female drag queens, none of this, none of that. And that was just part of them wanting to promote their brand, and they decided that was part of their brand and the rest of us weren't. And I think if we're going to continue, and they have changed since then, I will give them credit for that. Their photos are more inclusive of people, but to have had that as a core part of your business can never end well. And, you know, the staff there are fantastic, and that's not on them. But when management have that mindset, I don't think it's ever going to go too well. And so we need to be looking at lots of different venues across Australia and saying, okay, are you hiring people of colour? Are you hiring AFAB queens? Are you hiring non-binary performers? And not only that, are you hiring them and promoting a safe place for them to work in? I think the most fantastic thing about Piano Bar is that I went in and they were like, okay, cool. And during that first year working there, I changed my name to Malibu within the community. And said, oh, do you want to just call me Malibu? That's probably easier. Just use that all the time. And bang, that was done across every staff member. It was never something that I had to bring up again. I was like, okay, cool. And then I was like, oh, I actually prefer they, them pronouns. And they were like, okay, can you give us some education on this? I've not met someone that uses they, them pronouns before. And it was literally one conversation that I had with management. And I was like, so this is it. This is what I am. I'm non-binary. And they're like, oh, okay, cool. And that was it. That was just, thank you for telling us. Thank you for educating us when we needed it. We'll make sure everyone's good with it. And honestly, there've been very few slip-ups from my co-workers. I actually don't think I remember any slip-ups from my co-workers since. And then it's usually the patrons still get it wrong, but I wear a little they, them enamel pin, and when they ask, I'm usually able to be in a position where I can, yeah, good choice.
Got mine too.
Yeah. I'm usually in a position where I can have a quick chat and say, this is who I am. This is what it means to be non-binary. And I'd say 85% of the time, it's been a very easy conversation that I've had no issues with. And the other time, it's usually just someone that's a bit drunk having a lot of questions and being like, but do you then like guys or girls? And I was like, well, that's a completely different issue. If you're hitting on me, please let me know. But that's usually what I go with it. And they're like, but what do you have down there? And I'm like, well, unless I'm trying to sleep with you, you don't need to know. And usually that's enough for them to just go, oh, you're right. All good. And just like wander off. And I'm like, oh, good conversation, guys.
Yeah,
so yeah. Yeah. And I think we need to be providing safe places where trans, non-binary and gender non-conforming people know they can go, know they'll be safe, know they'll be respected and protected by the venue from any issues. So I think that's what we as the Australian drag community need to be really pushing for. And it's difficult when people see RuPaul's Drag Race as like, this is drag, and it's just not. It's honestly just, drag is so much more diverse than what they show on RuPaul's Drag Race. And I honestly, people are like, oh, have you seen the new All Stars episode? And I'm like, I haven't started the season. I didn't finish last season because it's just disheartening to see the way that we're on season, 12? Yeah, we just finished season 12 and there still hasn't been a queen that at the time has been able to be open about their gender or about what they do, and they just do not allow they don't allow AFAB queens to apply for it. So it's just, if we can get more representation out there for that, then I think things will be able to improve across the international drag communities, including Australia, obviously, because it just makes it so much more, it would be so much easier because that's kind of like our top tier is if you become a RuPaul's Drag Race queen, you know your career is set for the rest of your life. Like you can kind of just do what you're doing and not have to worry about, will I get another gig? Will this venue close down? So I think if we can be putting AFAB queens in that position, we'll be able to see the trickle-down change across all venues, because there are some that are amazing, but there are also still some venues that aren't doing what they should be doing.
Thank you so much for speaking to me today. I've really appreciated our interview and the conversation and hearing you speak about all of this. I think I've definitely learnt some things as well, and I've definitely been able to hear a lot of the stuff that you've been saying is very encouraging to hear about the changes that have been occurring. But before I let you go, to continue this this chain, to tag someone, who inspires you and why?
Well, I absolutely adore Max the Drag Queen. I met Max when I reckon it was the weekend that they turned 18, and they came out with my friend Alicia, who they'd met through high school and doing different events together. And I met this tiny little kid that was, it was first time in a gay club, first time seeing a drag queen live, and so excited about it. And I remember him having a conversation after the show, and he's like, that's what I want to do. I want to be a drag queen. I want to work as a drag queen. And I'd been doing drag for maybe a year or so at that point. And I remember saying like, oh, best thing you can do, like go and do like a makeup course or a sewing course or, like something that can be your backup. Because most of the drag queens in Melbourne have kind of a thing that they do on the side. They're hairdressers, or they work at Spotlight, or they're sewers and costume designers or makeup artists. And that's the money that makes sure their bills are paid. And then drag's kind of a fun hobby that makes money to pay for the drag. And I remember saying that, and he's like, no, I'm going to do full-time drag. I'm going to make it happen. And I remember just being like, okay, that's really inspiring that you have that drive. And Max is 21 now, and is working full-time as a drag queen. And that just blows my mind that they started drag and just push themselves to develop their skills and push themselves to get more work and put themselves out there to promote gigs and to find new gigs and create new gigs. And I'm just always so inspired that it probably took them 2 years to be on a stage regularly, not even that. And I'm just always so inspired by how hard they work and the drive they have, and that they set that goal of, I'm going to do that full time, and bang, they're doing it. It's incredible to me. I'm really proud of them.
Thank you again for the interview. You've been listening to Tag You're, the Drag Edition with Lauri Juniper and interviewing Malibu Stacey as part of BRIMBANK Live FM.